All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video, we'll be talking about temporary and permanent fiscal policies as well as politics behind the fiscal policies. All right, now when it comes to your temporary fiscal policies, let me write this down over here. So let's say this is your temporary fiscal policy. Okay, it may last anywhere between 2 to 3 years, for example, 2 to 3 years time period. Okay, and a permanent fiscal policy. This is your permanent fiscal policy. May last you a long time. May last a long time. All right, and this is meant for deep recessions or what we call depression, deep recession, or depression. And this one over here, this is temporary, which means it's meant for a small recession, small scale recession. All right, so that would be the difference between your temporary and permanent policies. Now, economists believe that permanent policies are more effective over a long period of time than temporary fiscal policies. All right, people react more strongly. Okay, let's say people react more strongly to permanent fiscal policies compared to temporary fiscal policies. And this reaction may include, but not limited to, things like career change. Okay, maybe they change their business. Okay, maybe change the location where they do their business. Okay, maybe they move to another location for employment. Okay, maybe they go for training and skills development to make sure they adapt to any kind of structural change within the economy because of fiscal policies, right? And fiscal policies may allow businesses to expand. They may allow businesses to spend more on capital. So capital expenditure goes up, which means investment in capital goes up, as a result of which you may have either a shortage of workers, and depending on whether or not you need more workers for a machine, for example, or okay, too many workers if the machines are able to do the work of a worker. All right. So in that case, the worker may go ahead and go to a university, college, skills training development program, so on and so forth. Okay, so in that case, we know that a permanent fiscal policy will have more of an impact on the worker's life than a temporary fiscal policy. Okay, it will change the way he or she thinks about the future. He or she decides about certain things in the future. All right, so this has to do with temporary and fiscal policy. Now, apart from temporary and fiscal policy, you also have to consider politics. All right, so this is politics. And when it comes to politics, okay, what we're basically saying over here is that politics in general impact fiscal policies. Okay, and the level to which these fiscal policies are implemented and how effective they are in raising the GDP. Okay, because when it comes to politics, politicians do want to get reelected. They want to stay in business, as a result of which they do things that people like. And people like an expansionary fiscal policy rather than a contractionary fiscal policy because it allows them to consume more, spend more, okay, borrow more, as a result of which GDP goes up. Businesses like an expansionary fiscal policy compared to a contractionary fiscal policy. Yeah, because it allows them to spend more on capital investments. It allows them to expand. As a result of which politicians in general, they recommend expansionary fiscal policies during a recession. And you don't have a shortage of all these recommendations when it comes to a recession. They recommend expansionary fiscal policies. So this is expansionary fiscal policies, such as tax cuts, okay, government aid, so on and so forth. However, politicians will generally refrain from recommending a contractionary fiscal policy because they know that their popularity amongst the general public, amongst individuals and businesses, may go down if they do recommend a contractionary fiscal policy. Okay, but do not recommend a contractionary fiscal policy. All right, and these two factors over here, the fact that it might be a temporary or permanent policy, as well as politics, okay, along with some of the other factors that we've talked about in the past, such as your interest rates, the uncertainty of interest rates, as well as time lags, they contribute to the impact of fiscal policies as to how impactful the fiscal policies might be and how predictable the impact or the fiscal policies in general might be. Okay, so depending on whether or not okay, politics plays a big role in the implementation of a fiscal policy, it will decide as to what extent the country may implement or impose a fiscal policy, depending on whether or not okay, the general awareness, okay, as well as the reaction of the general public to temporary and permanent policies, okay, will change, okay, will impact the GDP as well as personal consumption, for example. Okay, interest rates, again, will impact personal consumption. Okay, time lags may impact as to what extent the GDP might grow. Okay, so all this has an impact on the economy, and in general, they basically tell you as to what extent a fiscal policy might be successful or unsuccessful in developing or growing the economy. Okay, so this is impact on impact on the growth of economy, on the economic growth. All right, so impact on economic growth as well as GDP, okay, based on the effectiveness of fiscal policies. And because these factors are unpredictable, they cannot be predicted. Economists usually recommend a monetary policy for a short recession. Okay, this is a monetary policy for a small scale recession. Okay, And again, monetary policies have to do with pumping money into the reserves by the central bank, as a result of which interest rates go down, so on and so forth. Okay, whereas economists recommend fiscal policy, especially expansionary fiscal policy, for deep recessions or what we call depression. Okay, and this is because the expansionary fiscal policies, along with your discretionary fiscal policies, are unpredictable because of all these factors, such as politics, general public reaction, interest rates, as well as timelines. Whereas economists, they recommend a contractionary monetary and fiscal policy for an inflation because that will help reduce inflation. And the same concept goes when it comes to inflation. All right. When it comes to a small scale inflation, the economists recommend a monetary policy, contractionary monetary policy. Whereas for a deep inflation, such as hyperinflation, economists recommend a fiscal policy, a contractionary fiscal policy, because contractionary fiscal policies are generally unpredictable and may take a long time when it comes to implementation. All right, so that would be it for this video. On behalf of V Electronics, this is Obey. Have yourself a great day.